This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happening surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's a special bonus episode, a special report here, which we'll get into shortly. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as you can listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure you are on all the socials with me: X, Instagram, TikTok, at Subway to Shea. Like I said, it's a bonus episode here, special report, because the Mets have made a little bit of a transaction here as they are bringing up Jeff McNeil as well as Francisco Alvarez and sending down Hayden Sanger and Brett Baty. And here to break it down with me, he has the article out there, is none other than Andrew Tredinnick of the NorthJersey.com and The Record. He's the New York Mets beat writer as well as columnist there. You can follow him. You can see it right there at Andrew_Tred. He's out there in D.C. right now for the 4-game set. How are you doing, Andrew?
Doing pretty well, Ant. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on. Like I said, you had the article out there. You're going to be able to check it out. You could go on the website, as well as I'm going to put it in the description of this episode as well. And let's start it off right off the bat. You know, Brett Baty, he was hitting as of the last 7 days. I think he was batting .333 at a home run, a couple of RBIs there, and as well as 3 walks and a stolen base. The reason I figure he's getting sent down is because Jose Azucar has no options, and it would have to be able to be clearing waivers after being designated for assignment. Is that right on there with that?
Yeah, for sure. That was kind of the decision that the Mets had to make following the Jose Siri injury with what they have kind of in the center field. I know they've kind of thrown out the idea that maybe McNeil could play some center field, Akunia, maybe move Nimmo back over to the center field. But aside from Nimmo, there's not much, there's almost no major league experience among those guys. So with where they are in the outfield, Azocar, a guy that, he would have to clear waivers if he were to be designated for assignment. And beyond that, he's kind of their experienced center fielder aside from Tyrone Taylor. So that's what kind of made this decision a little bit tougher on the front office about kind of how they were going to go about things here with their backup middle infield.
Now, I mentioned the stats for the last 7 games. What was the feel around the clubhouse during this homestand, with Baty as well, especially, over this last couple of games? He's starting to hit well. You're starting to see a little bit of life out of Brett Baty's bat. Defense has been a little bit better as well. What is kind of like the feel around the clubhouse with the team as well as Brett Baty? Was it kind of like he knew that he was going to go down in this whole situation? How did that go about?
I mean, I feel like you felt like he was turning the corner at this point, and you look at how he barreled that ball off Wheeler the other day. That was pretty impressive. But the slow start, you look, his strikeout rate is still over 30%. That slow start kind of maybe doomed him. And with what Akunia brings to the table, some speed off the bench, a versatile glove that you can play, shortstop as well, second base, and maybe center field. We'll see. I think that start kind of doomed Brett here, even though he's kind of seemingly turning it around here. Acuna's kind of been maybe a little bit more balanced, all over the place. So, I think he was, kind of encouraged by the last, week or so of, his at-bats. But, the Mets front office was left with a tough decision here. And I'm sure we'll see Brett Baty up at some point in the near future if an injury pops up. So tough for him considering, he seemed to be turning the corner here offensively.
It's kind of that same situation that Mark Vientos went through last season where, he had that big home run. He was starting to come around with the bat. They had to send him down. And then he comes back and he takes over the third base job from Brett Baty. So maybe this is something that Brett Baty can build off of, knowing that his friend Mark Vientos kind of went through the same similar thing there. Now, when we switch gears and we talk about Jeff McNeil, where is he going to be playing to start this? Is it going to be center field? Is he going to be playing most of the time at second base? Where do you see Jeff McNeil sliding into the lineup here?
I think I think he's your everyday second baseman. I don't know about every day, but I think Akunia will still kind of filter in there. Maybe you're playing matchups, with McNeil being a lefty, Akunia being a righty. You can kind of give Mendoza some options there. Maybe we see McNeil in one of the corner outfield spots, spelling Brandon Nimmo, maybe a day here or two. I don't know how far along that center field transition is. But maybe a little bit more of a split with what Luis Angel Acuna has proven, and you want to make sure he gets some regular at-bats too, with how young he is and what he's kind of shown here early in the season. So maybe, 60-40 split, something along those lines, and then McNeil working in the outfield. So we'll be seeing here shortly. I'm curious to see kind of what the lineup looks like with both him and Francisco Alvarez coming back.
I assume that Acuna is going to have that kind of split like he did with Brett Baty, where then you start seeing him play a little bit more often here. Because if he's not playing daily, it's really hard to have him be on the roster right now with this team if he's not playing on a daily basis. But then you throw in, center field being an option for him as well. It's going to be interesting how they assign Acuna into the lineup, especially since he's been playing so well on offense, on defense. I assume that he's going to be playing daily. And another reason why they kept him up here is they really don't have a backup shortstop. I mean, it's just Francisco Lindor. And if he ever needs a day, which he usually doesn't, he usually plays every game. But, let's say he gets hurt. What happened last season, you need Acuna, who plays shortstop. Baty doesn't play shortstop. So it makes more sense to keep Acuna.
Yeah, and that was something that I was kind of curious, with the playing time, kind of how they were going to approach that, because we've seen Brett Baty, he's aced the AAA level. Luis Angel Acuna had some trouble down in Syracuse, but I think Acuna's proven that maybe he didn't need that AAA experience, rises to the moment, and that's the biggest thing moving forward. That playing time share. Maybe give McNeil some days, coming off kind of one of his lesser seasons offensively. Maybe they're more comfortable giving Acuna more time over McNeil after what he's proven here in the early going, batting around 280, stealing bases, all the things that he provides, strong defense. Maybe this is the changing of the guard here a little bit moving forward. Or is it just Mendoza plays the hot hand, plays the matchups? So like I said, I'll be curious to see how it plays out, particularly over these next few weeks.
Yeah, it seems like with Acuna, him getting that experience at the end of the season in big games seemed to really propel him. Obviously, he got off to that tough start this season, but he has really provided speed, defense, offense for this team, and it's great to see him playing so well. With Jeff McNeil trying to play a little bit of center field, like you said, we don't know where he's at with that. Acuna has played center field. Obviously, they have Azócar, who plays center field up here. Tyrone Taylor, I'm pretty sure they're going to be getting a split. And possibly Brandon Nimmo, I would assume, would see some time out there in center field, correct?
Yeah, it seems like he's definitely open to that. So, and then you have, on the bench, maybe Jesse Winker. If it's based on matchup, if you're going up against a righty, you have Winker, Nimmo, and then you can kind of shuffle the cards there, maybe late in games with the bullpen. I don't know if you'll see it as much as we have in the past, obviously, with him being that everyday center fielder. He had that plantar fasciitis, was dealing with that kind of all off season coming into the spring. So, with how much responsibility you have there and how much ground you have to cover in center field, maybe kind of a plug and play here and there for Nimmo. I kind of think that's maybe the expectation at this point. Moving forward.
We kind of knew when it comes to Francisco Alvarez and Hayden Sanger, we knew it was going to be tit for tat, that those two guys would switch roles here. This, was more of a given considering what we're dealing with Jeff McNeil as well as Brett Baty. But was there any thought about possibly keeping Sanger and carrying three catchers? I know that's not the most logical thing to do, but Sanger and Torrens have been great behind the plate. They're leading a great pitching staff, and it kind of gives Alvy some time to, ease back into the lineup. You're talking about a hand that he's got to catch with that hand, and he's got to hit as well. And with Starling Marte and Jesse Winker really not taking the DH role and grabbing it by the hand. I was wondering if there was ever a thought about possibly, carrying 3 catchers at once.
I don't think so. Just given with where the roster is, and you kind of only had Brett Baty or Akunia or Zokar to kind of with that transaction there, with kind of all the major league deals and whatnot. But I do think you feel as the Mets leadership, you feel much more comfortable about that catcher depth after what Hayden Sanger provided you, and you don't feel like you need to go out and pick up someone off the waiver wire or anything like that. Obviously what he proved with his defense, his ability to throw out guys, and the bat was kind of an added plus. I know he didn't hit incredible, but he proved that he can lace it into the gap, square up some pitches. And, it was kind of a unique situation here. Alvarez goes down. You're maybe a little bit concerned about what the catching position is. And Luis Torrens kind of took that and rolled with it. And now you're considering maybe even more of a timeshare behind the plate with what Torrens provides defensively, throwing out runners, and, showed a little flourish there with the bat. So that you have to feel pretty optimistic about the catching position for the team, more so than prior to maybe Francisco Alvarez's injury, that maybe he can take some time to get that hand in good shape, and you don't need to run him out there every day.
I'll say this, and I'm pretty sure you could agree that the depth that this Mets team has, whether it's now pitching, whether it's offense, defense, there is a lot of depth on this team. And it's great that they gotten out to this, extremely well start to the season here. Yeah. Andrew, I can't thank you enough for joining me for this, little bonus episode here. Always appreciate your time. What do you got coming up while you're down there in DC?
Yeah, I'll be down here for all 4 games. So just make sure to stay tuned for how McNeil and Alvarez, how they're playing here early in the series, early in their seasons, and go from there. I'll probably have some features up next week from the coverage here down in DC. So just make sure to stay tuned in North Jersey for that.
Always a wonderful time speaking with you, Andrew. Make sure to check out Andrew Tredinnick on X at Andrew_Tred, New York Mets beat reporter, as well as columnist for NorthJersey.com and The Record. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube, like the video, share it, and you'll be able to listen to this as well in a short little while on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For Anthony Rivera, for Andrew Tredinnick, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast. And always remember, let's go Mets.